how does one become a god? This phenomenon has taken place a few times within the Naruto Boruto universe, and it really depends on what the universe considers to be a godlike entity. This also goes back to what's considered godlike within any fictional universe, which is pretty much someone with immense power and authority. So today we're going to explain the 6 ways in which one achieves godhood in this specific universe, and maybe it hints towards what happens later on in Two Blue Vortex. Now with that being said, let's get into the video. So the first one on the list is attaining the power of 6 paths. This goes back to chapter 380 when Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sannin, questioned Pain about whether he's Yaiko or Nagato, and Pain replied saying that we are Pain and we are a god. Now this in and of itself is a self-proclamation, and looking back from the perspective of late Naruto or the Boruto series, this power doesn't seem like much, but at that time it was. This guy had the power of these 6 paths, which allowed him to manipulate attractive and repulsive forces, summon immortal entities, extract human souls, raise the dead, and even create technology far beyond human comprehension at that point in time. So this was a godlike entity, and he acknowledged himself as such. But where did he get this power? Well, this requires some backstory. So the 6 paths of pain are pretty much corpses controlled by the main body, that being Nagato Uzumaki. He does this using the black rods inserted into their bodies, which act as receivers for his chakra. This allows him to reanimate them and remotely control them, while also sharing some of his abilities with them, thus the formation of these 6 paths of pain. Now, the Rinnegan itself, which is the source of this power, doesn't belong to Nagato. It was actually given to him by Madara Uchiha. Now this might sound confusing to some because there's this one panel where Obito claims that he gave Nagato the Rinnegan when speaking to Konan, but you have to remember that at this point in time, Obito was still pretending to be Madara Uchiha. We later got the true backstory, which had Black Zetsu showing Obito a younger Nagato who already had Madara's Rinnegan, which is when Obito put it together that Madara transplanted them without anyone knowing when Nagato was still a boy. Black Zetsu then went on to reveal that Madara awakened the Rinnegan when he started to die of old age, which is years after he implanted Ashurama's cells into his body. This is then later backed up by Hagoromo himself, with the added information that Madara was the reincarnation of his son Indra, and Ashurama was the reincarnation of his son named Ashura. So when Madara grafted Ashurama's cells into his body, he pretty much combined both of those chakras, which awakened Hagoromo's own power, that being the Rinnegan. So not only is Nagato using the great all-powerful dojutsu of the Madara Uchiha, he's also using the power of Hagoromo himself, the Sage of 6 Paths. This is very significant since Obito, who later took these eyes for himself, confirmed that the chakra and power of just one of those eyes was too much for him to handle, which means that the Rinnegans themselves supplied chakra to the body of its user, that being 6 Paths chakra. With that said, even though Pain was the best user of the Rinnegan when it comes to utilizing its many abilities, he couldn't actually use its true power. And that's because it doesn't belong to him. The only person that could truly wield the power of those Rinnegans was Madara himself, its true owner. Now at number 2, we have becoming the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails. This one is a bit more complicated because it does depend on a few factors, but in essence, the Ten Tails is what the Otsuzukis use to devour a planet. You see, the basic concept of how the Ten Tails acquires power is very simple. An Otsutsuki travels to a planet, plants the Ten Tail seedling, which then transforms into a divine tree after consuming an Otsutsuki. It then spreads its roots across said planet and absorbs all existing life forms, including the natural energy of the planet itself. This of course is very important to note because the quality of said energy determines the potency of the chakra fruit the Ten Tails then produces, which also means that it determines how strong the Ten Tails becomes. So in the context of the original Ten Tails, it was able to consume an Otsutsuki and absorb enough energy from the planet to form a chakra fruit. It then later merged with Kaguya herself before being divided into the 9 Biju by Hagoromo. This means that not only does the Ten Tails in the latter half of Naruto possess the power of the sacrificed Otsutsuki and the planet itself, but it also possesses the power of Kaguya. Mind you, at this point, the Ten Tails' power scales to the size of a small planet, and that's without the power of the 9 and 8 Tails that resided within Naruto, Minato, and the Killer Bee. This is the same 9 Tails that eclipsed the power of all the Biju combined, while only having half of its original power. So you can see why becoming the Jinchuriki of such an entity can make one extremely powerful. Now this can all be accomplished by using the 6 paths 10 tails coffin seal, which only works in conjunction with the Renegon. With that said, this isn't a necessity for becoming the Jinchuriki of 8 Tentails, just this specific Tentails. That's because the husk of the Tentails, otherwise known as the Ghetto statue, was sealed on the moon by Hagoromo, and only someone possessing the Renegon, which is Hagoromo's power, has the ability to summon it. By the way, when I say the Renegon is Hagoromo's power, I'm specifically referring to the Renegons that were derived from his chakra, such as Madara's and Sasuke. So other Sasukis have Renegons that have no relation to Hagoromo whatsoever. Now, Tentails Jinchuriki isn't just about power, they also have insane abilities such as the Truth Seeker Orbs. This ability stems from the power of 6 paths Senjutsu, which the Tentails provides to its user. It naturally possesses the ability to turn the bodies of things it touches to dust, but it also possesses a separate ability which allows it to negate all forms of ninjutsu. For example, before Obito became stable and fully understood how to use his abilities, the Truth Seeker Orbs were only able to temporarily disable the Edo Tensei Hokages. That's mainly because Edo Tensei itself allows the bodies to reform after a certain period of time, which pretty much makes them immortal in some sense, which is also why they had to seal them to get rid of them. So, while Obito had the ability to instantly kill anyone who touched his TSO, the Edo Tensei had the benefit of coming back, which posed a problem. Now, this of course changed when Obito gained full control over his newfound powers, which allowed him to awaken Yin-Yang release. This was confirmed by Tobirama himself when he said that Obito is now using a jutsu based on shadow and light styles that nullifies all ninjutsus, which explained why the other Tensei bodies themselves were no longer reforming after being hit with Obito's TSO. By the way, TSO themselves are made up of all chakra natures, which is actually the secret behind it being able to erase the things it comes in contact with. What I mean by this is that every elemental ninjutsu or nature release is made up of 2 or more chakra natures. Now, Dust Release is one of those nature releases, which is actually the basis behind Particle Style, the same ability the Tsuchikage uses to erase people and objects. So since TSO possesses every chakra nature, it also possesses the ability to use Dust Release if the user intends it. That's also why Obito is able to use his TSO to perform Explosion Release, since Explosion Release is the combination of Lightning and Earth style, which the TSO consists of. So as stated by Hiruzen, it's a combination of more than 4 changes in nature. In fact, it's more than a Keke Genkai or Keke Tota, which means it reaches the level of Keke Mora, which, as a side note, I think Kekemora is what's known as Shinjutsu, but that's a theory for another day. Now, the Tentails Jinchuriki also has other abilities such as Wood Release, Flight, Tentails Cataclysm, Infinite Tsukunomi that can enslave an entire planet, etc, etc. It also gives the user immortality, which is really just insane regen and likely the ability to live forever, but someone can kill you if they vaporize your entire body or, let's say, extract the Tentails, as was the case for Madara.
So this is 6 paths power.
Now at number 3, we have the Karma Seal. This jutsu is absolutely broken in the sense that it pretty much allows Yotsuzukis to attain a form of immortality by constantly resurrecting within a new body. To be more specific, the Karma Seal is stated to be an highly compressed Otsutsuki Bako file. This compressed file is slowly extracted over time, and once all of that data is fully extracted, the person who implanted it will fully resurrect within the new body. So the concept itself is pretty simple. We've actually seen a version of this technique in the form of Orochimaru's Cursed Mark. This allowed him to impart his powerful Senjutsu chakra to someone imbued with his Cursed Seal, which allowed them to enter a Cursed Mark state or undergo Sage transformation. It was also later revealed that a copy of his consciousness is stored within the seal itself, which is how Sasuke was able to resurrect him during the war. Now, Karma goes way beyond that in the sense that it's also able to convert the Otsutsuki data within it to another person's component, while still remaining genetically Otsutsuki at its core. That is how Boruto became 100% Otsutsuki while still retaining his own essence. Also note that the normal process of overwriting the vessel's data only overlays the Otsutsuki data on top of the human data until the Otsutsuki chooses to resurrect. That is why vessels such as Jigen retained his human form for over 1,000 years, even though he was 100% Ishiki Otsutsuki. And the Karma Seal itself also provides the vessel with the ability to absorb pure chakra-based attacks, use space-time vortex, and also amplifies their physical prowess as well as their abilities. It also gives the body itself the ability to fly, hide one's chakra signature, and also gives one the ability to access the dojutsu of the Otsutsuki. Now, whether one attains godhood through this process depends on whose Karma Seal they possess, but the Otsutsuki themselves sees themselves as gods above man, which is why Boruto, who defeated a god, can't remain an ordinary human. He must also become a god by way of becoming Momoshiki himself through the process of karma. So this once again goes back to the gods in the context of powerful entities rather than what's used in the religious context.
Now I see. It appears you have strongly inherited the powers of the Otsutsuki.
Now at number 4 we have consuming chakra fruits. This one ties into what I said about the 10 tails and the Otsutsukis as well. That's because the goal of planting a 10 tails and absorbing the life of a planet is to attain a chakra fruit, which is pretty much a lump of chakra and genetic information. This is what the 10 tails produces at the end of this process, which the Otsutsukis use to evolve into more powerful entities. Now powerful is kind of an understatement of sort because, as stated by Ishiki Otsutsuki, if one consumes enough chakra fruits, they will evolve into a true Otsutsuki god, whatever that is. In fact, there is one such Otsutsuki who attained this level of power, that being Shibai Otsutsuki. It's said that he devoured countless planets and underwent multiple karmic resurrections, to the point where he evolved into an actual god and even ascended to a higher plane of existence. This gave him the power to reflect all attacks, see every possible future, and even gave him the power to use omnipotence. This power is described as the programming language of the gods, which was said to use to create worlds and even alter reality. So this is the true definition of godhood within the Naruto universe so far, akin to entities such as Zeno from the Dragon Ball universe or even the Soul King from Bleach. Now at number 5 we have Shibai's cells. Now this might seem a tad bit anticlimactic coming off what I just said, but this is indeed a way one can attain godlike powers. As I mentioned before, Shibai became so powerful that he ascended to a higher plane of existence, but what I didn't mention is the fact that he left his body behind. Yes, a scientist known as Amado had access to Shibai's cells for some reason. I have no idea why, but it hasn't been revealed as yet, but that isn't important at this point in time. The point is that he was able to implant these cells into cyborgs such as Damon, Ada, and Code, which allowed them to greatly surpass the powers of Jigen. This simply means that one can attain powers greater than that of Kaguya's by simply having some of this guy's cells implanted within them. Now, while these characters aren't anywhere near Shibai levels of power, it is enough to consider them godlike entities when strictly referring to power. Now at number 6 we have using the power of omnipotence. You see, back in Boruto chapter 79, Ada's true ability was finally revealed, and the name of that ability is omnipotence. Momoshiki later explained that omnipotence is an ultimate power only an all-knowing, almighty god can wield. It's a programming language the gods were said to have used to create worlds, the will to make anything real. That's what omnipotence is. So in a sense, omnipotence is a reality warping technique that allows the user to bend reality to his will. But we have some key details we need to address to understand the scope in which this ability can be used. Now, Ada was first introduced as a character who possessed a charm ability which pretty much makes everyone infatuated with her. Well, anyone aside from Otsutsukis and blood relatives. Ada was stated to have received this ability after she was implanted with the cells of Shibai Otsutsuki himself. Hamada, who ran these experiments, confirmed that he didn't manufacture the ability itself using his cells. The abilities came from Shibai himself. This was somewhat later contradicted by Momoshiki when he said that he has knowledge of every Shinjutsu in existence and Ada's charm ability isn't one of them. This was then later backed up in chapter 79 when it was revealed that Ada's charm ability isn't a Shinjutsu stemming from the Otsutsuki. It's in fact a new ability manifested by Ada using the power of omnipotence. It's then explained that Ada's charm ability is the result of Ada's subconscious desire made material by omnipotence. Because again, omnipotence is the will to make anything real, and Ada's desire was to be loved. So in using omnipotence, she was able to manifest that desire into a reality, thus making everyone infatuated with her. So in a sense, the charm ability isn't an ability by itself, it's just a manifestation of Ada's deepest desire caused by omnipotence. Now Momoshiki also stated that Ada can't control the abilities since she isn't an Otsutsuki, which is why this was all done subconsciously. We also saw this ability being used again in chapter 79 with Ada accidentally manifesting Kawaki's desire to make Boruto an outsider, so it will be easier to get rid of him. As stated by Momoshiki, this current phenomenon is Kawaki's desire becoming reality. He went through Ada and invoked omnipotence to cause you and him to switch positions. So now Kawaki is the son of the Hokage and Boruto is the outsider. Momoshiki later explained that people's memories have been altered. Any common knowledge involving Boruto and Kawaki has been changed. This is possible since every person's consciousness is by nature linked through chakra, so a god could meddle with it if they so choose. Now the ability does have some limitations, which kinda brings into question whether it's true omnipotence, depending on what you think omnipotence is, and that's because Momoshiki said that the ability doesn't affect the Otsutsuki fights such as Boruto and Kawaki, nor does it affect the caster. It's also confirmed that the ability doesn't affect Sarada and Sumire for some unspecified reason. So in a sense, omnipotence is the most broken ability ability ever introduced in the franchise, the ability to do anything, be anything, create anything, all according to your will. Oh, and by the way, you can't simply tell people the truth and expect omnipotence to be reversed. In fact, it was later revealed that the ability is in continuous effect, so as soon as someone notices a contradiction, the ability overrides it once again and forces them to either forget it or accept it as it is. So the only way to reverse omnipotence is by using it again to change reality, which just shows how broken the ability is. So in theory, one can simply wish to become an all-powerful god using omnipotence and thy will be done, I guess. There's absolutely no established limit on the ability itself, which kinda invokes the no limit fallacy to some degree, but at the same time, it did say the will to make anything real, so you know, it is what it is. With that said, let me know your thoughts down below. Those are all the ways in which someone can become a god in the Naruto Boruto universe. And if I missed something, let me know down in the comment section or ping me on Discord. You guys know how to reach me, or you can reach me on Patreon. It's up to you guys. So yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. Drop a like if you like it, and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.